Good afternoon, my beautiful crime family. And I hope everybody's having it. You know what? We got snow last night. Believe that shit? We got snow. It's April 19th. We got snow. Yeah. It was 19 degrees or something last I checked. Feel like weather. Yeah. I'm always looking over this way. My head's always over this way because my TV screen's that way. Anyway, this is going to be a really interesting show. I got this from both a mod investigator of mine and also one of my crime family. Gave me the name of this what we're going to be sharing here today, and it's good. Right? All I can say is the prosecution has got their hands full. That's all I can say. Let me say hi to my crime family. Holy cow, there's a lot of chatting going on. Hello, Randy. Good to see you, brother. And Kaz, good to see you. Ro, good to see you, girl. And thank you very much. And Wendy, good to see you. And Doc Terry, good to see you. Randy, good to see you. Deborah Lynn, good to see you. My girl. You, brother. Jackie Bushable, good to see you. Doc Terry, good to see you. And To Kill a Crime, my girl, good to see you. Hey, who else? M. Cos, good to see you. Sweet and Salty, good to see you. This is really going a long ways up there, so there was like 86 messages or something, 68 messages or something when I looked. So, Allison, good to see you. Hello to everybody, and thank you very much for being here. So, yeah, this is going to be a really interesting show here. It's going to show who Sy Ray is, who will be testifying, being a witness for the defense for Mr. Kohlberger. He usually is on the prosecution side. You know what I'm saying? This time he's not. So that's telling the world a lot, right there before he even testifies. That's telling the world something, right? It is to me. There's no doubt about it. It is to me. So let's get to it. First, I wanted to show you a little bit about him. And that's what I'm going to do. Right there. Okay, so this is from Mary Talk, which is down listed in the description. Sy Ray, Z-Tech Corporation, or excuse me, ZX Corporation. Sy Ray is the founder of ZX Corporation and lead RF engineer for 10-2 Technologies. Sy's entrepreneurial career was ZX began after 20 years in law enforcement, where he spent time as a SWAT operator, homicide sergeant, and directing fugitive missions. Some of his work has been featured on several episodes of 48 Hours, 2020, The Discovery Channel, Dateline, showcasing his investigative and technology expertise. Sy spent time in Afghanistan as a field advisor for undercover team targeting improvised explosive device IED cells. Sy established ZX in 2014 as shop for law enforcement as it pertains to cellular geolocation mapping, analysis, and training. The software he designed currently leads the industry in geolocation mapping of RF data, while devoting his career to bringing advanced training and investigative technology to law enforcement. Sy is subject matter expert in the field of geolocation mapping and identifying target sets. Sy's geolocation expertise in the field of radio frequency has advanced into RF engineering of detection devices with 10-2 technology during the past 2 years. His accomplishments include engineering RF drone detection sensors used by the NFL at the 2015 Super Bowl, and engineering RF tracking and security technology for law enforcement and military applications. In his free time, Sy enjoys spending time on his family's ranch in southern Arizona and penning early drafts of a book he intends to have published. There we go. And that is him. And what do you think about that? What do you think about this guy? What do you think? You think this is the man? To me, this is the man. He works with law enforcement pretty much. And he's coming in and saying, this is where Brian Kohlberger was. That's going to be huge. That's going to be huge. So let me show you his channel. He does have a channel. And we're going to watch a video of his channel here. Up here. Okay, so we're going to watch part of his channel here. Oh, I gotta stop that screen. And then share this one. And this is his channel called Socialite Crime Club right here. And it is in the description below. So let's listen to him here. And then on this one also that's talking with him. I believe that's his wife, but don't quote me on that one.
He was a terrible person, and he controlled a lot of the discipline. He would punch them, choke them, kick them, refuse any reason at all. So they were all malnourished.
Tammy Huntsman and Gonzalo Curiel.
The children, 6 and 3 years old, were in Huntsman's care.
Curiel started making the rules, and around the same time, the 3 siblings started getting abused.
He would zip tie them to like their beds or chairs. If they got in trouble, he would put them in the bathroom. He wouldn't allow them to huddle together in the bathroom
to keep warm.
So if they huddled together and he caught them, he'd come in and spray cold water on them and then lock them back in the bathroom. And we're talking for days.
Oh my goodness.
Those were the most precious babies in the world. They didn't deserve this.
Welcome to Socialite Crime Club. What sort of tragic tale are socialites in for today?
I'm going to tell you a story of the worst possible scenario of what can happen to children when every adult in their lives make terrible decisions. I'm going to start this episode introducing you and the audience to a handful of different players. And I apologize early. We have a lot of people that are involved early on in this case. So I was thinking about doing a family tree, but then when I realized it only had 2 branches, I stopped. So,
this is a pretty complicated life or people story.
It is. So we're going to start with Sean, Daniel, Tara,
okay,
and Vivian Salcido.
And this is Sean on the left, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I've got 2 pictures. I've got a picture of Sean here and then a picture of Vivian. Vivian is with their 2 youngest in this picture. There is a third child, a girl that's a little bit older. So in this picture, the 1-year-old, that's Delilah. The 4-year-old is Sean.
Okay.
And the 7-year-old, we're going to call her Jane. So I'm intentionally changing her name. Her name is Jane.
Okay.
Lots of issues with Sean and Vivian.
I could potentially see this just by looking at the pictures. Vivian looks like she's very well put together. She's a beautiful woman. She looks very young in this picture.
Yeah, and they're living in San Bernardino around this time. It's 2013 roughly. And a lot of tragedy is going to start hitting this family. Sean's got a little bit of a criminal history. He's got a prison sentence coming up.
What do you think that neck tattoo is on him there?
I think it says innocent.
Are you being serious?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what his neck tattoo says.
I'm just curious. Okay, so he has a neck tattoo.
He has a neck tattoo. He's got some criminal history, and he's been convicted of some weapons and drug charges. So in 2013, the conviction happens. He's got to go serve a prison sentence in early 2014.
Okay.
So he's about to go spend some time in prison.
Do we know how long his sentence is?
A couple years, because I know he gets out a couple years later, but he's going to end up going back again, and we'll talk about that later on.
Okay.
Vivian, though, there's some argument over exactly what happens. On December 30th of 2013, so just a couple months before Sean is supposed to report for his prison sentence, she's out walking around at one night, about 9:30 at night in San Bernardino. She gets hit by a car.
Oh.
Like hit by a car. It kills her.
Oh, this is tragic.
She's going to die.
Oh, dear. What happens with the kids?
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay.
Where I want to spend just a second with Vivian, there is some conjecture that this was not accidental. Intentionally thrown herself in front of a car trying to kill herself.
Oh, no.
So whether she got hit by a car and it's an accident or whether it's intentional, there's some argument back and forth. Some of her family or some of the distant family believes that she killed herself because of all of this mounting pressure of having the kids and Sean going to prison. There's just a lot of stuff going on with that.
Sure. I'm sure there's a lot of financial concerns that she had.
A ton of stuff, right? So yeah, there's a problem. They've got 3 kids. Sean's about to report for his prison sentence, so they don't know what to do.
Okay.
Sean has a cousin by the name of Tammy, and Tammy is married to an individual by the name of Chris. So I don't lose anybody, we have Sean and Vivian. Okay. Vivian dies in a car accident where she's hit by a car. Sean is going to prison. Okay. They have 3 kids, Delilah, Sean, and Jane. After Vivian dies and Sean's getting ready to go to prison, Sean calls his cousin. Tammy's going by Tammy Criswell, which is her married name. She's married to an individual by the name of Chris Criswell. Okay. And Sean says, hey, Tammy, I'm in a bind. I need somebody to watch my kids while I'm in prison. And she steps up. She's going to agree to do it.
Okay.
At the time, Tammy is 39. This is 2014 now. Chris is 40. They have 4 kids of their own. So they have a 21-year-old, a 15-year-old, and 12-year-old twins.
And the 21-year-old still lives at home.
Still lives at home. And they all live in a 1-bedroom apartment.
And they're adding 3 more children into this family.
3 more children. And they live in Salinas. So they're up in Salinas, California, just south of like San Jose area.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, you have essentially 6 people living in this 1-bedroom apartment before Sean calls. And then after Sean calls and they take these other 3 kids. Now you have 9 people living in this 1-bedroom apartment.
Oh my gosh.
I'm pausing for effect because you look like you want to say something.
I honestly am pretty speechless. I see this going terribly wrong at this point. There's a lot of issues with this as it is. So go on. And what do Tammy and Chris do for a living at this point? How are they supporting all of these children?
I can't speak to that entirely. I don't believe Tammy works. And I've got a picture of Tammy, and I believe this is one of the twins that you see her with. Okay. And then here's a picture of Chris as well. I know Chris has a job because I've seen a couple interviews with him, and I know for some reason he travels with his job. So he's going to go to Austin, Texas for a little while during this 2014 year.
And you said this is her with one of her twins. How old are their twins? Their twins are 12.
The twins are 12. Okay. So there's a 21-year-old, a 15-year-old, and then the 12-year-old twins. Okay. Along with, now there's a 9-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 1-year-old.
Okay.
It's a busy house.
It is.
So Chris and Tammy Criswell, they're cousins to Vivian and Sean, as I explained earlier. You asked what Tammy does for a living. I actually found on her Facebook, it says that she is a good mom.
Oh,
so,
okay.
And
she works at being the best mom she can be, it says.
Yeah, on her Facebook profile. So if Facebook says so, it's true.
Yeah. And being a mom is a lot of work. I know that.
Yeah.
Firsthand.
So Chris is working in Austin, and he comes home from his work trip in Austin. I don't know how long he's been gone. I couldn't find that anywhere, but he's been gone for a little bit of a period of time. Okay. And he comes home and he finds that Tammy has invited one more person into their home. Oh. A friend of their son. So their son is 15 at the time, who's also living in the house. He has a friend, next door neighbor. So he and the next door neighbor hang out a lot. Well, he and the next door neighbor make another friend by the name of Gonzo. His name is Gonzalo, but everybody calls him Gonzo.
Okay. And this is Gonzo's picture here.
This is Gonzo's picture here. Apparently, Gonzo's having some issues. Family issues are just a complete mess. So Tammy decides to take Gonzo in as well. So now there's 10 people in this house.
She just loves feeding the cats, doesn't she?
Yes, she does. Now, Chris is a little taken back by this one. And there's some conversations about, babe, stop. Like, what is going on here? Stop.
Because I'm sure his paychecks are now supporting this other person as well.
Correct. And he puts his foot down that Gonzo's got to go. They just can't take another. And Tammy's going to put her foot down that, no, Gonzo needs to stay.
He's got a very smooth demeanor and smooth talking. And I think he's going to go over really good with the jury. I think he's going to know what he's talking about. And I think he's going to tell you the truth, I think he is going to sway the jury a lot. I mean, he's going to show them where Mr. Kohlberger was, and it was miles from that place, and that they got the wrong car. And I do believe he is going to show that. And I think the prosecution is sweating. Back to the story.
Day. And Chris is really struggling on why is she making this the fight?
Right. Oh.
And then he realizes there's a little bit more going on.
She's romantically involved with Gonzo, isn't she?
Yeah, his nearly 40-year-old wife is banging a 16-year-old.
Oh, this is never good.
No, so he leaves. He's like,
okay, good.
I'm out. I can't do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So he's now out of the picture, which takes the house count back to 9. So I guess that's good in a way.
But I'm assuming he's only paying child support for his children.
I don't know that he's even paying child support.
Now, did they officially divorce, or did he just leave?
I think he just leaves. I don't even know that he divorces her.
Interesting.
It's just a shit show.
Okay.
And she takes it serious enough with Gonzo that she changes back to her maiden name of Huntsman.
Oh.
So she is now going to be known as Tammy Huntsman instead of Tammy Criswell.
Okay.
Now, in April of 2015, her 15-year-old son, Gonzo's friend, he gets arrested.
For what?
A litany of charges. He's a juvenile, so we're not going to get into it. It's a serious enough offense that he actually gets put into juvenile detention. And you know from history of being a cop, it's hard to get a charge with a juvenile that actually requires them to be institutionalized.
To do time.
Before their case.
Right.
So
wow.
It's a pretty major charge. We'll just leave it at that. So he is now in a juvenile detention facility.
Okay.
Apparently, this is where things really start to go south. Tammy and Gonzo are now running the household. The son is gone. And there's just a lot of issues. Neighbors are seeing a lot of issues. Chris has a lot of issues with what his former wife, mother is doing.
Well, I understand Chris's, but are neighbors getting the same sense that this woman is now having a relationship with this 15-year-old? Or what kind of issues are the neighbors seeing?
We'll get into that. I'm glad you're asking.
Don't leave us hanging, please.
Okay, well, here's a picture.
Oh, okay. This picture, it appears maybe she's developed an affinity for meth. Maybe I don't know.
That's not what concerned me, but yes, that is one thing that concerns me. She's not looking good. So for those of you listening and not, here's a picture that was taken Thanksgiving Day of 2015, and what we're seeing in the picture here is they were Thanksgiving food to celebrate Thanksgiving. You know how people will go around and they'll,
like charity.
The less fortunate people, they'll do little boxes of food and stuff.
Yes.
So they've been identified in the community as one of these families that could probably use a little help around Thanksgiving. And a group came over and gave them a box of food and a turkey.
Okay. That was nice.
They're a thing. They're a couple. And how people aren't thinking it is really weird that we're giving this box of food to a 39-year-old woman who's with a 16-year-old boy taking care of 6 other kids.
Right.
Seems a little odd.
And it's one of those things similar to episode of if something seems wrong, trust your intuition, right? And in all fairness, he does.
Yeah. So people start reporting this to the Child Protective Services. This is California. So we talked about Salinas, California.
Yeah.
They don't call it CPS there, but I'm going to call it Child Protective Services just so everybody's tracking what the group is.
Right.
There's 4 visits in 2014 from CPS to this family. A couple of the visits are called in by Chris, the former husband.
Okay.
One of them is called in by her 12-year-old daughter. One of the twins actually calls CPS on their own mother.
Oh my gosh.
So out of the 4 different trips to the house, CPS claims, everything seems fine.
Do we know who the 4th caller was?
I don't.
And when these people called CPS, what kind of reasons did they give for their concerns?
Just not being taken care of, dirty living environment, too many people in a 1-bedroom house, just a lot of different issues and concerns.
Okay.
A lot of it around being able to like adequately feed and just provide for the kids.
And do we know once CPS responded, what were their reports like? Was there any of that information available to say
Everything
what?
looked fine. There's an interview that's going to come out later on where the director was like, we can't predict the future. Everything looks fine.
So they never walked into the house,
I don't
or they
know.
did, and they were just saying, well, they're with their family.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird, right?
That is weird.
Now, we have some people in California that listen to our podcast, so I wanted to cover something because I threw out the name Huntsman.
Mhm.
And there might be a handful of people in California who immediately have some PTSD over the last name of Huntsman.
Mhm.
So if you're in California, you're like, wait a second, I know this last name. We're going to segue for just a second, and we're going to talk about Tammy's brother,
Oh, okay.
Wayne Huntsman. Wayne Huntsman is really popular in California because in 2014, he started the King Fire.
Oh my gosh.
And if you're not aware of the King Fire, it burned about 120 square miles. It burned 12 homes, 68 structures, happened just east of Sacramento up in the mountains where it's really hard to fight fires. This was a really serious fire because of the threat to homes.
I remember that.
Wayne was a prisoner back in the day, and he got on a inmate firefighting team where the state of California would actually let prisoners help fight fires. So he kind of had this affinity for fires. And one day he decides to go out and just start a fire because he's bored.
Uh-huh.
And he videotapes himself doing it.
Oh my gosh.
And it's kind of funny. Here's a copy of the videotape, and I'm going to explain what he's explaining in the background here. Is he's showing, hey, there's fire over there, and then there's fire over here. I'm pinned in on this road. I can't go either way. Hey, babe, I hope I get out of here okay. I hope everything goes right. Pray for me.
Was this an attempt at victimizing himself in some way, or just, I don't know, showing the world what he did?
This is stupidity because arson investigators look at this and they say, hang on, there's 2 completely different separate sources here. One behind him, one in front of him. There's probably about 75 yards between the 2.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else is on fire. That doesn't. They're like, whoever took this video probably started these 2 fires because this was the source of the King Fire. This is where the King Fire started.
Oh my God.
As he starts walking out, he runs across somebody who just lives down the road from here. And he tells him, hey, there's a fire. You better pack your shit and get, your house is about to burn down. Just as a good citizen, like trying to warn him.
Oh, well,
I
that
just saw a
was
fire.
kind of him.
He goes a little bit further and he's walking out, and a retired firefighter stops and sees him, and he's making this big story of, oh my God, there's a big fire. We got to call for help. So he jumps in the firefighter's truck.
Uh-huh.
And the firefighter's like, there's something shady with this guy.
Yeah.
And he's explaining, no, I was walking. I came across this fire. I have it on video. And this is the video.
He shows him.
The firefighter actually that stopped to pick him up is like, this is so unbelievable. I don't believe this guy.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to capture this on my phone. So he hits record. Wayne is showing him the fire that he just started, saying, I'm so lucky to be alive. And then the firefighter intentionally like moves the camera to his face. That's why you see Wayne's face at the end, because he's like, this guy just started a fucking fire.
Yeah. Oh, this is good. Okay.
So Wayne gets popped pretty quick for this. So if you're used to the Huntsman name, or you're familiar with that name up in that area, yes, same family.
Okay. Interesting.
So let's recap before we get into what happened during Thanksgiving with the picture of the turkey and all that.
Okay.
It's 2015. So Sean and Vivian's kids have been living with Tammy for over a year now.
Okay.
Right. Her kid went to juvenile detention roughly in March of 2015.
Okay.
So from March of 2015 to November of 2015, it's just Tammy, Gonzo. Tammy's 15-year-old is in detention. So it's the 2 12-year-old twins.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's the 3 kids from Vivian and Sean.
And the 21-year-old.
In and out. He's 21.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter. Pretty young group of kids as well.
Right.
So Thanksgiving rolls around and Tammy decides it's time to leave Salinas. So she's going to load up, I think she has a Ford Expedition, a red Ford Expedition. She's going to load up Gonzo and her 2 twins.
Okay.
And then Sean and Vivian's 3 kids. So you have the 2 twins, Gonzo, Tammy, and then you have Delilah, Sean, and Jane.
Okay.
All in the car. And they're going to go up north, Northern California.
Okay. And this is on Thanksgiving Day.
Thanksgiving Day. It's just time to leave.
And was this after they had their Thanksgiving dinner?
We're going to assume it was because it's late afternoon.
Okay.
They bounce around up around Shasta for a couple of days.
Okay.
The Redding area.
Yeah,
for a
it's
couple
pretty
of
up
days.
there.
And then they ultimately will land in Quincy.
Okay.
And Tammy has some family in Quincy. So it's around December 9th when they get to Quincy.
Okay.
They're going to stay with Tammy's family there in Quincy for a couple of days. When I say stay with the family, the only people actually staying with the family is Tammy, Gonzo, and her 2 twins.
Okay. Where are the other kids?
That's a good question. Family isn't even aware that these other 3 kids are even around. But
they don't know that Tammy's taking care of her cousin's kids?
No.
Okay.
But eventually they see Jane in the car.
Okay.
So for the 2 days that Tammy is staying there, Jane is supposed to stay in the car.
Oh my gosh.
And she's just kind of living in the car. I don't know how she's going to the
cold
bathroom.
Up there
I don't know when
at this
she's
time.
eating. Yeah. There's this pile of clothes in the back of this little excursion or expedition, whatever it is. Like she has to huddle underneath those at night to stay warm. It's a total shit show. So eventually,
how is she going to the bathroom or anything like that?
I don't know. I don't know that anybody really knows. There's just not a lot of reporting what's happening, but she's kind of this discarded kid that's just in the expedition or excursion.
Okay.
Now, at some point, there is some conversation with family about these 3 kids.
Okay.
Sean, Delilah, and Jane. Tammy says, we still have Jane, but Sean and Delilah, we just couldn't take them on anymore. We had to get them adopted. So they just got adopted. We still have Jane, and maybe at some point Jane will get adopted.
They just dropped him off somewhere to a nice family who took him on?
Just to get adopted.
Okay.
The family that she's staying with is smart enough to put 2 and 2 together. And okay, something's not right here. So they're going to call the Plumas County Sheriff's Office.
Okay.
Deputy's going to show up. Deputy knows what the deal is. Like this family, hey, there's this little girl that's staying in this car. It's weird. So the deputy shows up, searches the car, finds her buried under this pile of clothes, trying to stay warm. It is freezing outside.
Okay.
Gets her out of the car, and he's thinking she's 6 or 7. She's 9. But she's so malnourished and underdeveloped at this point that she looks like a very young kid.
Was she able to communicate with the officer when he found her?
She is able to communicate, which is kind of interesting.
Okay.
So a couple of the initial observations the deputy makes, though, before he ever gets into communicating with her, is she's covered in bruises, head to toe. Her arm, shoulder, and jaw all have fractures.
Oh my gosh.
This is a really sad story. He tells it well, and on his page he's got quite a few stories and about his career and cases and stuff. So make sure you check out their page there. It's listed in the description, and the mods are posting links also. So yeah. But yeah, this is a really, really sad story, and it's going to get into it here. So
she's missing 6 teeth. Her fingers are broken.
Oh my God.
She has bed sores. Now she can walk. So think about that. A child that can get up and walk, a young child that's mobile, but has bed sores, like what does that tell you?
Right.
It's super, super rare. When children who are that age can walk and they have bed sores, it's because they're being forced to lay down for extended periods of time. She's in terrible condition. They immediately rush her to Sacramento, where she's put in the hospital. She's going to make a full recovery. She's going to come back and be, for the most part, all right, but she's a mess.
Okay, so now I'm really curious. What did she communicate with the officer on scene?
We'll get into that because, well, it's not so much on scene because you have to understand, because of her age and the trauma that she's going through, it's a series of interviews. You can't just set a kid down like that and say, tell me everything.
Right.
They're going to have to work through this. And there's a lot. So, but there's a bigger issue. The one thing she does communicate is, I'm by myself. I don't know what happened to adopted.
So she thinks they got adopted.
She thinks they got adopted.
Okay.
But Tammy's mom is actually a pretty good person.
That's good.
She thinks Tammy's a monster. And eventually word gets back to Salinas that they have Jane, and Jane's in the hospital. Gonzo and Tammy have been arrested for child abuse because of Jane's injuries and the way that the condition that they found her.
Mhm.
And the mom calls up to Plumas County and says, hey, where are the other two kids? There should be two more kids. Delilah and Sean are still missing. So the agency kind of goes into this frantic search of, okay, nobody's buying the adopted things. To your point, you don't just stop along the way and adopt your kids.
Right. There's no paperwork. There's no documentation showing that they were released to somebody.
Right. So there's this frantic search at this point for these other two kids. Cell phone records going to come in and somewhat save the day here.
And
We'll
this
get
is when
into
you
this.
came into play.
Somewhat. A lot of this had gotten solved early on, but we had customers up there that were using the system and
Mhm.
actually looking at this. And what's going to end up happening here is that there's a lot of calls to storage units.
Oh.
So when Tammy first gets into Reading, she's calling
Mhm.
around to some storage units, and I'll show a map that I created here in just a little bit.
Interesting.
Law enforcement's going to figure out where that storage unit is. They're going to go
Mhm.
search the storage unit. They open it up. There's some plastic totes, like what you would store.
The
your-
Rubbermaid totes.
Yeah, like Christmas decorations or
Yeah.
whatever. One of the things that caught their attention, though, is that they were duct taped closed, and not just like around the tote, but around the edge too. They're really sealed up and taped up. And that's really all that's in there. There's not a lot of stuff in there other than these totes.
Okay.
So they open up the totes. They find both kids. Both kids are dead,
Each in their own tote.
jammed into these totes and then taped up.
I wonder if they taped them because they put them in there alive.
It's hard to say. I believe, and we're going to get into this, I believe both of the children were dead before they ever left Salinas. I think the kids were in the totes in the car all the way from
Mhm.
Salinas up to Reading.
I mean, this guy has seen everything that there is to see it in his 20 years. I mean, he has seen everything. And he was in Afghanistan. He's, make sure you catch the beginning part of this show because I go through everything that he's done. And it is quite remarkable. And like I said, he usually works for the law enforcement side, but he's not in this case because he sees something different than the narrative that they are pushing. And he is an honest man, and he's going to show where Brian Kohlberger was. And that's a huge problem for the prosecution. And they better start re-looking at this case like we've been saying since day one that there's something wrong. And, we know, what's crazy is we know the characters involved. We're pretty sure of the characters involved in this. That's what gets to me. That's what really gets to me. Anyway, back to this story here, which is really a sad story.
Maybe they taped them to prevent smell from coming out while they were in the storage unit.
Yeah,
Then
there's some evidence.
There is
They
a
find
trigger
roll of
warning
duct tape
here.
in the car that matched the same duct tape.
This is a trigger warning also because this is some pretty heavy stuff.
That was used on these totes, and Gonzo's fingerprints are on the
duct tape.
Yeah, so they're able to piece together pretty quickly that Gonzo is the one who taped these up. The storage unit was actually in Tammy's name, so it's not going to take Sherlock Holmes to figure out who's responsible for putting these kids in the storage unit.
And literally the only things that were in there were these totes.
Correct. And these kids are they're dead, but they're in
Right.
terrible shape. Terrible shape. They clearly are extremely undernourished.
Mm-hmm.
Bruises from head to toe, broken bones.
Oh
It is terrible. It is absolutely just incredibly horrid how bad these two kids were.
Oh my gosh.
So you were asking about Jane.
Mm-hmm.
She's taken to the hospital. She does start to give up information about this. She says that everything was going pretty good, that Tammy was actually a pretty good mom. Things were going along pretty well until her son got arrested. And after Chris left and then her son got arrested, it was Gonzo and Tammy that were running the house. And apparently Gonzo just was a terrible person, and he controlled a lot of the discipline. He would punch them, choke them, kick them, refuse them food for just any reason at all. So they were all extremely malnourished, or they were all malnourished. He would zip tie them to like their beds or chairs. If they got in trouble, he would put them in the bathroom. The bathroom just has a concrete floor, because remember, this is a 1-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't allow them to huddle together in the bathroom
to keep warm.
So if they huddled together and he caught him, he'd come in and spray cold water on them and then lock them back in the bathroom. And we're talking for days.
They couldn't even have contact with one another to comfort each other or anything.
They would literally get beaten if he caught them doing that.
Oh my God.
And you would think at first that, well, maybe this is just a Gonzo issue, right? And Tammy,
and Tammy doesn't know somehow.
I mean, it is a 1-bedroom apartment, but yeah, maybe. At one point, Jane tries to run away and she's trying to crawl out a window, and Gonzo catches her and just beats her, horribly beats her. When they get her to the hospital, she has a fracture on her shoulder, and her clavicle bone is broken.
Oh my God.
The fracture on her shoulder is so bad, the bone is almost to pierce through her skin. Like, she's just in terrible. Like, this poor kid went through literal hell. And we're not talking a couple days, months at this point. And then she recalls right around Thanksgiving, her brother and sister received just a
Yeah, Storm Dancer, I think he's got pretty thick skin. I mean, he's been to Afghanistan. He's seen 20 years of stuff as a homicide sergeant. I mean, this guy's seen it all. And he knows his stuff electronically. And, you know, he's got thick skin. And otherwise, he wouldn't be offering his help on this. I feel that he's looked at this, and he looked at the data, and he's saying, wait a minute. You know, right is right and wrong is wrong. And I think he's seeing it that they are wrong, that the prosecution is wrong on this. And, you know, he's just being honest. And I think he's got pretty thick skin. He will be staying there. No matter if the FBI comes knocking at his door, he's, you know, this guy is not gonna fold. Not gonna fold.
Horrible beating from Gonzo in the bathroom. She just simply states that after the beating, they wouldn't open their eyes, they wouldn't walk, they weren't moving, they weren't talking. After that, she hears Gonzo and Tammy talking about what they're going to do. She actually hears Gonzo say, "It's my fault. I'm the one who did this. I'll just leave." And Tammy begs him to stay.
She had to have been on meth. He was providing her drugs.
It just makes no sense, right? It's terrible.
What kind of... Oh.
Yeah, absolutely terrible. I think that the idea of leaving for a while was this adoption thing. I think they had the intent to just wait for Jane to die. That's why the other 2 kids are sitting in the storage unit. They're going to bury him somewhere up in the mountains and then come back and just tell everybody.
But they got tired of sleeping in the car, so they went somewhere to actually have a bed to stay in.
Yeah. Throughout the area,
Uh-huh.
it's just Jane who wasn't staying in beds.
And none of the other friends and family noticed anything odd.
It's not her kids. They didn't know that Jane was in the car.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's terrible. I have a little video here that I made. And for those of you listening, I'm going to try to narrate this, and I apologize, but it might be worth going to YouTube to watch this one. This is what I actually had to testify to in this case. So I thought, I'll bring this in.
Is this the video evidence that you used in court?
It is used in this case. And why this was so important is we needed to show her movements. Active participant. We didn't want to rely just on Jane. And the other thing is, I don't want Jane to go into court and testify. So if we can put this case together without Jane necessarily being re-victimized, it's not going to be easy. In fact, it probably isn't going to happen. But the more evidence we can look at, the better. Mm-hmm. What we're looking at in this first place is just some history going into November. You see the little blue shaded areas. That's where her phone is at. You can see her house, somebody she visits. Here in a little bit,
Okay, just to, because there's a lot more people in here now than there was when I started. I'm going to reread what because there's a lot of things in the chat here. I'm going to reread what this man is about. And this is from that, what is it, Mary Talk. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll come back to that story. I'm going to go back to this and reread this. Okay, this is what this man is about and where he's been. Sy Ray is the founder of the Z-Tech Corporation and lead RF engineer for 10-2 Technologies. Sy's entrepreneurial career with ZX began after serving 20 years in law enforcement, where he spent time as a SWAT operator, homicide sergeant, and directing fugitive missions. Some of his work has been featured on several episodes of 48 Hours, 2020, the Discovery Channel, and Dateline, showcasing his investigative and technological expertise. Sy spent time in Afghanistan as a field advisor for an undercover team targeting improvised explosive device IED cells. Sy established ZX in 2014 as a one-stop shop for law enforcement as it pertains to cellular geolocation mapping, analysis, and training. The software he designed currently leads the industry in geolocation mapping of RF data. While devoting his career to bringing advanced training and investigative technology to law enforcement, Sy is a subject matter expert in the field of geolocation mapping and identifying target sets. Sy's geolocation expertise in the field of radio frequency has advanced into RF and engineering of detection devices with 10-2 Technologies during the years. His accomplishments include engineering RF drone detection sensors used by the NFL at the 2015 Super Bowl and engineering technology for law enforcement and military applications. In his free time, Sy enjoys spending time on his family's ranch in southern Arizona and penning early drafts of a book he intends to have published. And that, folks, is who this man is. So, yeah, do you think prosecution's sweating a little bit? Yeah, they are. And this might make them relook at this whole case. It might force that hand, and I surely pray that it does. Anyway, let's get back to the story.
She's going to visit her 15-year-old son who's in the detention facility. And this first part of this video just simply shows them in and around Salinas leading up to Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Every once in a while, we'll see the phone come down to this lower area in Salinas. That's the detention facility.
Okay.
And then right after that, they actually go up to San Jose. And there's a couple trips to San Jose. There's another family member up there that she sees from time to time. I think her mom might be up there as well.
Okay.
So finally we come to Thanksgiving Day.
Okay.
That evening, we can see a very clear departure from Salinas going north. This first one here is going to happen at 6:16 p.m. So that's the last connection we see on her phone before she leaves. So roughly around 6 o'clock, Thanksgiving Day is when they leave. And it's not hard to piece together exactly where they go.
They're clearly headed north.
They're going to come up through Stockton, then take I-5 all the way up into Sacramento.
Okay.
And they're going to make it just past Sacramento on the 27th before they finally decide they need to stop for the night. And they're going to stop in a little tiny town just north of Sacramento called Dunnigan.
Okay.
There's a Motel 6 there. So they're going to check into the Motel 6.
Okay.
I actually have a little video of the Motel 6. And by the way, it's very easy for us to see with the records. It is consistent with them staying the night at the Motel 6. The phone's there all night. You can see exactly where the Motel 6 is at.
Do we know how they paid for their room there?
I don't. I'm sure the investigators do on this one. I'm not sure how they paid for it.
Okay.
But I've got some really interesting video here from inside the lobby at the Motel 6 where they're checking in and they're just laughing the whole time.
Oh my gosh. This is terrible. And none of the kids are with them.
What's scary, apparently they stayed in the car. Most likely Jane stayed the night in the car, and the other two siblings are dead in the tubs in the back of the car.
And did they ever interview the person working at Motel 6 to ask if they ever saw children with them?
Yeah, they never saw the kids.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
So the next day they're going to take off from Dunnigan and they're going to arrive in Reading, and they're going to spend a couple days in Reading. There was something that came out here that I don't know everybody knew at first. She has a court hearing date involving her son the first week of December. So they're going to get up to Reading. They're going to stay in Reading for a little bit, but then we're going to see the phone jet all the way back down to Salinas.
Okay.
And they're going to stay in Salinas for a couple of days for this hearing. And then they're going to come all the way back to Reading.
Oh my gosh.
So what we're here is on December 3rd, but it's late in the afternoon, December 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
Tammy starts calling a bunch of storage units.
Okay.
Just say, hey, got an extra storage unit available?
Right.
And apparently either they didn't or the prices weren't right, and she called the number of them. But it's also late in the afternoon, so most likely she's not going to be able to check in that day per se.
Mm-hmm.
The next morning, she's going to follow up and call one of them back. And then we see the phone actually travel to where that storage unit is the next morning.
And do we know which storage unit she ended up putting them in?
Yeah, hang on. Shh. You're always jumping ahead.
Well, because I saw that Hartnell only had a 1-star review.
So the next morning, she starts by calling Aspen RV and Mini Storage first thing.
Okay. They have good reviews.
They had at least have 5 stars.
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes there immediately afterwards. So this is where law enforcement later pieces together. We should probably check out the Aspen storage unit.
Mm-hmm.
This is where they're going to ultimately find the kids.
Oh
so she put them in the storage unit here.
Oh, this is so sad. Oh, those poor babies.
After they put the kids in the storage unit, what you're going to see come up here next. So now we're to December 4th. Later that afternoon, they leave the Reading area and they're going to drive all the way back to Salinas.
Okay.
And this is the hearing for her son. She has to make an appearance for this hearing. So they had to go all the way back. Now they do take the twins. They take Jane. So it's Gonzo and Tammy and the rest of them. They're going to stay at a Motel 6 this time when they're in Salinas. So they're not going to go back to the apartment. And the neighbors say they never see him again after Thanksgiving. So that's consistent with that.
Sure. And did the twins suffer abuse as well?
No, they seem to be okay.
Oh my gosh, just Vivian's children suffered
Just Vivian's
abuse.
children. When the deputy first made contact with Tammy after finding Jane and seeing her bruises, and was questioning her, like, why is this kid like this? Tammy actually blames it on Jane and says that Jane has a habit of acting out and trying to hurt herself. And she's been like that ever since her mother killed herself. And actually like concocts this story that Jane throws herself around and intentionally tries to hurt herself because her mom killed herself.
How does someone like Tammy become such a wretched person?
Terrible.
How does this happen?
Well, I think there's some drug use here.
Oh, okay. You think?
Yeah. So by December 6th, the hearing is over and they're going to drive back to the Reading area. But this time when they get to Reading, we actually to the east, and this is when they're going to land in Quincy. Now, the whole thing with Quincy is this is where Tammy's cousins, I think it was, live.
Yeah.
So they're going to stay with Tammy's cousins. This is what starts the whole thing down the road, where they don't see Jane at first, and then eventually, why is this kid living in the car? And they call the police.
Interesting. So it's just the phone records that tied the whole story together.
Right. It pieces it together. It clearly shows, too, that she was an active participant. This isn't just Gonzo being Gonzo.
Right.
And especially when you hear the testimony from...
Did Jane have to ultimately testify in trial?
Well, it's going to get interesting. Yes, she was set to testify, and Tammy is preparing to go to trial, shows up at one of the pre-trial hearings, and just changes her plea. I want to plead guilty. And she took a guilty plea. She's going to be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole and with no opportunity for appeals.
Good.
That's the only way they would accept.
She shouldn't have that opportunity. And this is her in this photo.
Yeah, obviously
without
this is her
methamphetamines in her system, clearly.
Yeah, she's gained some of her weight back. She still looks like a train wreck, but yeah, this is her in one of her hearings. But yes, she will die in prison. She is never going to get out of prison.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you asked about Jane testifying.
Yes.
Gonzo is not going to take a plea. So not only was Tammy arrested, but so was Gonzo for obvious reasons. He's also going to go to trial, and Jane has to testify for his hearing.
Oh my gosh.
This is the one I had to testify on. A couple things to keep in mind as we talk about Gonzo and the court side of this. He's 17 at the time of the murder. So he moves in. He was just about to turn 16. So when he first moves in with him, he's 15, turns 16. Now we're a year later. So 17 when all of the murders happened.
Sure.
At no point in any of his interviews, during any testimony, at any contact that anybody has with him from the point of his arrest till the trial, he never shows remorse of any type. Like, yeah, shit happens.
He looks like a jerk right here. Like, he looks actually a lot younger in this picture than he did in the picture on Thanksgiving Day. Well,
notice he's gained quite a bit of weight too.
He has gained quite a bit of weight. Yeah. He's pretty chubby here.
Yeah. So I think, between both Tammy and Gonzo's, you're right. I'm sure there is some methamphetamine going on there. That's typically when we see someone get arrested and within 3 or 4 months, they start gaining decent weight or healthy weight. I would say more healthy weight than anything else. It's usually the methamphetamine piece. Now he's going to be sentenced to 2 life terms without the possibility of parole.
Good.
But we're in California.
Oh, they just love everybody there. Everybody needs a chance, don't they?
Everybody needs a second chance. California State Bill 394. It was passed in 2018. So it's actually going to be passed after Gonzo's sentencing. And Gonzo wasn't sentenced by the jury. The jury found him guilty, and then a very competent judge reviewed the entire case, said this kid has no remorse, has shown no signs of remorse. He needs to be warehoused.
Yeah.
And the judge, in her abilities, said, I am making the decision. This kid will never leave prison. He is going to die in prison. I'm giving him 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole. Then State Bill 394 came along in 2018 and changes all of that.
And what does it say?
State Bill 394. If you are under 18 when the offense is committed and you're sentenced with life without the possibility of parole, once you have served 20, you now go into the parole system. So he has the possibility now of being paroled after he serves 25 years. You figure
even with 2 life sentences?
Even with 2 life sentences.
Oh my gosh.
So there is a possibility he'll be paroled when he serves his 25-year sentence.
Good work, California. Yeah, good work.
Nicely done. So when he turns 43, he'll have the ability to potentially make parole and be released out in the wild again.
Well, hopefully karma comes full circle for him.
It's a terrible episode.
This is a horrible episode. There's no takeaway from this. I'm so sorry, socialites.
I do want to talk a little bit at the end, though, with CPS. And anybody can Google this. There is an interview that one of the news outlets does with the CPS office, the Child Protection Service, or whatever they call it in California. They're in Salinas, and it's the director of the program. It is probably the most screwed up interview of everything I've seen in this case. He takes no real responsibility, states that, well, they can't predict the future. They've been to a house 4 times, a 1-bedroom apartment, by the way, with 8 kids in it. It was dirty. It was infested. These kids had bruises head to toe. She had part of her shoulder blade almost poking out of her skin.
Right. Did they even look at the kids when they went?
Like, how do you miss this? I understand you can't predict the future, but there's probably some signs that we should get involved here.
Yeah.
And I think it's the takeaway on this is if people see things, they have to report it. They have to stay vigilant with that. I refuse to believe that the neighbors didn't. Hey, this just doesn't look good. Chris gets very defensive in a couple of the interviews he did afterwards that, hey, when I left that house, everything was fine. Well, you probably had some indications. And then he admits, well, I did call CPS twice.
Right. But a lot of this does fall on the shoulders of CPS because they are the ones that technically have the ability and the power to make something change. Right. And they didn't.
Right. And we see what the ultimate result was. But just super sad story all the way around.
It is.
It was good with the phones on this one, though, because the phones actually helped find the kids and it puts the case together at the end. So maybe a little bit of good stuff there, but not really.
It is interesting to me, though, that Vivian dies and then both of her children go with her.
Yeah, and her husband, who was going into prison, which is what started this entire
Sean,
process.
yes.
Sean gets out a couple years later, and then 2020 he murders somebody. So he ends up killing somebody, and now he's also in prison for life without the possibility of parole. And because he's not 18, he will not get the possibility of parole. But yeah, he just kind of a rotating door in and out of prison himself.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, every parent or every adult involved in this case is just a complete shit show.
Yes. Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, let's move on to the next episode. And no, you're right. Everybody in this episode is a terrible person. So we'll talk about more terrible people in next week's episode. If you're ready to join us again, join us for Little Annie. Stay safe, socialites.
Socialite Crime Club. You can look that up. That's his website there. Or I think it's him and his wife, because her name is Keri Ray, Keri. But I couldn't find. I kind of looked up a little bit. If they're sure that's probably his wife. Yeah, they don't make any money on the page. They just talk about it's just his way of getting cases out that he's had and seen in his life. And socialite stuff, they run other kind of stories, and it looks like it's just a way of a release to me, and just a sociable thing. And I did go over pretty much everything of how he and where he's from and what he's an expert in. And I think prosecution has got some really big problems. And they have had. But this is going to force their hand, and they're going to, they're done. They're done. In my opinion, they're done. When this guy gets on the stand, they're done, because he's going to show where Brian Kohlberger was, and that they're done. That's my opinion. So I'm happy about that, right? We got to be happy, the crime family. Yes. Anyway, that's just the show for this afternoon, and I thought I would show that. And I might run some other stories. He's got some really good stories. I might run stories off of from his page. Make sure you subscribe to his page. It's in the description. And if you want to check out the stories and stuff, you sure may do that. And I hope you enjoyed this afternoon's show. And my subs are my heart, and my mods are my soul. And until next time, it's